So you're running Docker containers on AWS, right? At some point, you're going to face a big question. How do you actually manage all of this stuff when you start to scale? Well, today we're diving into what I think is the simplest, most straightforward answer out there. AWS Elastic Container Service, or ECS.
I mean, you've probably been there. You start with a few containers, everything's great. Then you scale up, and suddenly you're wondering, how in the world do I keep all of this organized and running smoothly? It's a super common problem, and it's exactly what ECS was built to fix.
Just think about the world before services like ECS. It was kind of a nightmare, wasn't it? You were stuck doing everything by hand, manually SSHing into servers to start containers, constantly worrying about those servers, patching them, figuring out what to do when one failed. It was just a huge operational headache. And that's where AWS ECS just swoops in to save the day. Honestly, the subtitle on this slide says it all. It is literally AWS-managed Docker at scale. It's designed to lift all that heavy operational weight right off your shoulders. Now, the two most important words here are fully managed. What that really means is you don't have to install, operate, or scale your own container orchestration software. AWS handles all that complexity for you, so you get to focus on what you're actually good at, building your app. Okay, so to really get ECS, we've got to understand its main components. Think of these as the fundamental Lego bricks you're going to use to build and run your applications. Everything, and I mean everything, in ECS starts with a cluster. It's basically your own private playground, a space where all your containers are going to live and run. It's just a logical boundary for all your compute power, which can be either EC2 instances that you manage or, and this is cool, serverless capacity from AWS Fargate. Next up is the task definition. The best way to think about this is like a blueprint for a house. It's a text file, usually JSON, that lays out all the specifications, which Docker image to use, how much CPU and memory it needs, what ports to open, all the instructions. It's just the plan. It's not actually running anything yet. So if the task definition is the blueprint, what's the actual house? Well, that's the task. It's that simple. A task is a running instance of your task definition. So whenever you hear task, just think, okay, that's my container, or maybe a small group of related containers, actually up and running inside my cluster.
But wait a minute, what happens if a task just stops or crashes? That's the exact problem the service solves. The service is like the project manager for your application. Its job is to make sure you always have the number of tasks you want running 24/7. It handles restarting failed tasks and even hooks into load balancers. And this right here is the real magic of an ECS service. Let's say you tell the service, hey, I always want 3 tasks running for my web app. If one of those tasks suddenly fails for whatever reason, the service sees that, says, uh-oh, and immediately launches a new one to replace it. It's like self-healing for your app. No late-night pages, no manual intervention, it just works. All right, so the service makes sure our tasks are always running. But that brings up a really important question. Where are they running? On what kind of computer? This is the first big decision you have to make in ECS. You've got 2 launch types to choose from, EC2 and Fargate.
And the choice really boils down to this. How much control do you want versus how much simplicity do you want? With the EC2 launch type, you're in the driver's seat. You manage a fleet of EC2 servers. It gives you a ton of granular control. Fargate, on the other hand, is completely serverless. AWS handles all the infrastructure for you. It's the definition of simplicity.
So, how do you pick? Well, you'll want to go with EC2 when you need to squeeze every last penny out of your costs, maybe with reserved instances or if you need special hardware like GPUs. But you'll choose Fargate for things like microservices, APIs, or any workload that has spiky, unpredictable traffic. You just pay for what you use and it scales incredibly fast without you ever having to think about a server.
Okay, we have all the theory and the building blocks. Now let's put it all together and see how this actually works in the real world. We'll walk through a super common setup, running a web application on ECS.
So, let's follow the journey. A user somewhere on the internet makes a request. It first hits an application load balancer. The load balancer is smart. It talks to our ECS service to find a healthy task and sends the traffic there. In our example, we're using Fargate, so that task is just running, serverlessly. The code inside the task does its thing, maybe queries a database, and then all its logs are automatically streamed to CloudWatch. It's such a clean, reliable setup. But what happens when you suddenly get a huge spike in traffic? That's where service autoscaling becomes your absolute best friend. You can set up a dead simple rule that says, hey, if the average CPU across all my tasks goes above 70%, then automatically add more tasks.
So you scale out from 2 to 5, for instance. And when the traffic dies down, it scales back in, so you're not paying for capacity you don't need.
Of course, you can't talk about containers without addressing the elephant in the room, Kubernetes. So how does the beautiful simplicity of ECS stack up against the raw power of Kubernetes? Or, as it's called on AWS, EKS. Let's figure out how you'd make that choice.
This table really makes the trade-offs crystal clear. I mean, look at that. ECS gets 5 stars for ease of use. It's just simpler, period. And its integration with every other AWS service is absolutely seamless. EKS, being Kubernetes, gives you way more control and the freedom to move to another cloud provider. But that power comes at a cost, a much, much steeper learning curve.
So at the end of the day, you're going to choose ECS when your priorities are clear. If you're all in on AWS and you want simple, straightforward container orchestration, if you love the serverless idea with Fargate, and if you just want to deploy fast with as little operational pain as possible, then ECS is almost certainly the right call for you.
And that really leaves us with the final question, the one you should be asking yourself for your next project. What truly matters more to you and your team? Is it the deep, seamless integration and beautiful simplicity of a service like ECS? Or is it the power, control, and multi-cloud portability that you get from an orchestrator like Kubernetes? The answer to that question will point you to exactly the right tool